have been working with your section, or the section about misconceptions, mainly about that first, about China. So I was wondering if y'all can give me some ideas of the stereotypes or misconceptions that you've already learned in class about. If there are some on the screen, I just kind of put down some ones that I thought about. But if there's more that you didn't see on the screen, if you want to add and talk to me about, and then we can talk more about it. But I can just say what I've put up so far. I think there's an idea that because there's so many Chinese restaurants here, that most people just work in Chinese restaurants, and that's what their job is, and a lot of people, and that's all over the US. And there is some history with that. And then martial arts that everyone knows, karate or taekwondo and all that stuff. Funny story is there was a summer when I went to Haiti to do a service trip. And when I was working with the orphanage there, or the kids there, when they first saw me, they were kind of taken aback because I don't think they were very much exposed to people of Asian descent. And a lot of them, the first thing they said to me was either Jackie Chan or karate. And I was very much like, what? That's my firsthand experience with that. The idea that Chinese people are bad drivers, and that y'all mentioned earlier, all Chinese people look alike. Is there anything else that I didn't mention up here, other than what you mentioned earlier as well, maybe, that y'all talked about in class?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that one of them might be that they're all smart.
Right. Mm-hmm. I'll definitely dive into that later. Anything else?
Nail salons. Yeah,
nail salons. Mm-hmm.
Our Chinese restaurant.
I don't think I heard anything really. I mean, I couldn't really hear anything. If someone wants to repeat it loudly, or if there's nothing else. Okay, cool. Or is there more? Or no? Okay, we can continue. Awesome. So with all those ideas in hand, I'm going to go specifically. Yeah.
They wanted to say it, but we're thinking about politically correct. So they said cats and dogs.
Oh, got you. No, like eating. Yes, that is definitely a yeah. I remember when I was small, actually, elementary school, definitely someone, when they first met me, the first question they asked was like, do you eat dogs? And I was like, no, I don't, no. But yes, that's definitely something that is a stereotype or idea that people have. So I wanted to go through these 3 statements, and I wanted to see what y'all might interpret it as, or how these statements or these actions and behaviors might be misinterpreted. And I'll give you like an other side to it. Okay? So if someone is slurping their food or slurping their soup or smacking their lips while they're eating, what might you take that as?
They got no manners.
Right, they have no manners. It's kind of rude, right? Here in America, the culture here takes that as like, oh, why are you like eating so sloppily and stuff, right? But over in China, or like in the culture of China, in a lot of places, if you slurp a soup, it kind of means that it's very tasty. You're trying to make it, your behaviors kind of show that, oh, this is so enjoyable that I'm going to make it very visually obvious that it's so enjoyable, as well as the smacking lips. That kind of gives you like opposite side to what and why these behaviors are. How about the second one? Refusing for someone else to pay or help pay with something.
We're not saying that they're crazy. That person might think that like that person can't afford what they got.
Here, can someone just like come up to the screen and say that? I'm kind of having a hard time hearing.
Some people refuse to pay because they think that you might think that they don't have enough money to afford.
Right. Yeah. So like the idea that refusing, if, for example, sometimes if someone else is like constantly offering to pay, I might take that as in that they think I don't have the means to be able to pay, or I don't have my personal independence to pay or stuff. But in Chinese culture, it is very common to always cater to the guest and always cater to someone else. So there's always, and it's really funny, but with my family especially, when we're eating out with with family friends who are Chinese, there's always this war going back and forth on who's going to pay, because no one wants the other person to pay, because it's out of respect and out of gratitude for them to be with us and such. And then the last one, being extremely close in physical proximity when in a group. So if you had an experience of waiting in line and someone was like really close to you, what would you feel that is? Like, is that a negative response or anything?
Like, they don't know, like, personal space, like they don't know manners here.
Yeah, exactly. I think in American culture, personal space is something that's very valued. We see it in a lot of, like, I mean, even how the classroom is set up, right? We have our individual study area. When we go out to eat, we have those like individual tables that we have. But in China, because of the huge population, it is very common that everywhere you go is going to have an extremely high amount of people there. And so a lot of people kind of are already used to the high density of people around you, that there's not really much of a personal space. I felt this really closely when I went back to China 2 summers ago for the first time in a very long time. And we're trying to get on a boat. And everyone was trying to get on the boat at the same time. And there wasn't really a form of a line or anything. And so people were just pushing and pushing and pushing. And everyone seemed to just go on everyone's business, and like shoulder by shoulder, or like the back of someone's head was in my face. It was really extremely uncomfortable for me. But as I was talking through it with my dad, he was saying how it's very common for people just to like, because if there's less space between people, the easier people can get on the boat and everyone can get on the boat. So it's kind of the idea that the less space there are between people, the more people can fit in some place. So yeah, thank you for going through those with me. But I guess this kind of gives you an idea of like always thinking about the other side and thinking about the other perspective, even though it might seem rude or put offish. Always question, like, is this because I was raised this way? Or is this because this is what society tells me here in America that makes it seem rude and stuff? But what could you see and how can it be interpreted a different way? So going into what one of y'all said earlier about that Chinese people are just really smart and all they care about are grades. The stereotype of this, there is a kernel of truth to it, and it is stemmed through kind of the culture and history and traditions of China, specifically with Confucius. Have you ever heard of Confucius? If you have, can you raise your hand?
Yes.
Okay, so there seems like a good amount of you. Just to kind of like reiterate who Confucius was, he kind of was a philosopher, an idealist, and he had a lot of ideas that he taught and that has spread throughout China. One wouldn't say he is really a religious figure, more of like a philosopher. So he did have a lot of impact with how Chinese people behave and believe, and just the culture of China today. And one of his main ideas was how important education is. Here are 2 quotes that are translated from what he said, but he was also well known for doing a lot of talks and doing a lot of his teachings, and it was always, he encouraged people to come up and listen to him, and whoever wanted to sit down and listen to his teachings, he strongly encouraged that. And there was also the idea that he said of the importance of a teacher, and the relationship between an individual and the teacher is very strong and very highly valued. So you can see this in the classrooms in China. If you have ever visited or if you've heard or seen a real classroom, there's a lot of respect for the teacher. When the teacher walks into the room, everyone stands up. When the teacher calls on you to talk, you stand up individually and address it. when the teacher asks you to go clean the board or go get something for the teacher, that is actually a privilege to do. And so it's kind of different, I think, from the education here and how teachers are seen here. And that just stems in how Chinese culture was formed in these ideas from Confucius. So kind of just give you an idea of the history behind maybe some of these stereotypes and the fact that there might be a little kernel of truth behind them, but that doesn't mean that you can generalize the whole body of people. I think that's kind of the goal I want to kind of drill into it, that these stereotypes become dangerous when it is that specific single lens, single story. I know y'all heard about that or listened to the TED Talk. But that's when it becomes dangerous, when you associate a whole group of people to this one idea and not see them as individuals. And you yourself know that you're such a unique individual that every other person should also be seen that way as well. But yeah, I was just going through some of these. Let me double check on time real quick. Okay. There is a video, but I think we're kind of short on time. So we're just going to go straight to Emma, and I can send the video to Miss Sanderlin, and y'all can watch it later, or it's fine if you don't, but it's, yeah, just talking about Asian stereotypes in media and such. But we can go on to Emma.